Welcome back to ESA Winter 21. We are raising money for Alzheimer Fonden. Links to donate can be found below the stream. We would also like to thank QUARRY Tecmo Europe, Twitch and ViewSonic for sponsoring this event. Now it's time for DemonicRobots running Control. Take it away.
All right. Hey there, everyone. What's going on? My name is DemonicRobots, and welcome to Control. This is a AAA, almost SCP-like action game. I'm joined by two wonderful people that I'll let introduce themselves.
Sure. Hi, I'm Brian Otto. You might have caught me running this at AGDQ 2020.
Hi, I'm Lemura, and I guess now I'm a former world record holder for the game.
Very recently.
we got a pretty star-studded group of folks here. We got the former record holder, the former record holder, and as of like 3 days ago, the new current record holder. So that's pretty dope.
All right, so we're going to get started here. You guys donated for the costume incentive, so thank you for doing that. It's going to a good cause. And time is going to start here in just a moment. It's going to start after we skip this opening cutscene. And I will let Brian Otto in a second here explain the intro and the story and kind of get you guys an idea what this game is like. So let's see here. Time should be going right now.
All right, good luck. So this is Control, as Demonic alluded to. This is kind of like a AAA SCP game. We got the first skip of the run right here. This is Water Cooler Jump.
There we go.
Yeah, that actually skips a lot of platforming you have to do, or I guess movement, I should say. But this is the Federal Bureau of Control, the FBC. This is a giant building, or just rather a regular-sized building in the middle of New York that has some interesting properties to it. The FBC is an organization that aims to control and contain paranormal and paranatural happenings within the United States, and they monitor stuff throughout the world too. Our main character, Jessie, was drawn to this location. She's been looking for her younger brother and believes him to be here. And so some very strange stuff is about to happen as we walk down the next hallway. If you have trouble following our brief descriptions of the narrative through this run, that's normal. This is like a super wacky game, and I highly encourage you to play it on your own.
All right, so we're going to be coming up to the very first object of power in OOP and Oops. This is going to be the service weapon. So we find Director Trench dead here. He has committed suicide. And this is going to be the gun that we picked up. So the reason he's dead is because this gun will kill all of the wielders of it except for the director of the FBC. And because Jesse is now the director and Trench isn't, he essentially got fired. So it's kind of like Excalibur almost. But yeah, so that's what happened right there.
We should know now that because we picked up the gun, we are the director of the facility. So
yeah. We were originally the janitor's assistant. And now we have worked our way all the way up to the top. You know, it's the classic story.
So the gun that we picked up actually has some unique properties. You'll notice the little bar that is right beneath the reticule. That is our ammo, and it's going to recharge on its own. We don't have to reload it, but we also want to make sure that that ammo count doesn't go all the way down. Otherwise, we have to wait a very long time for it to get all the way back up. So a lot of the combat in this game is obviously accuracy, but also resource management, as we saw right there. We are in an area called the Astral Plane. We'll get back to that. A good thing to talk about coming up here is going to be a spawn manipulation, which is something that's going to be present in basically all the combat in this game. So you'll notice that when Demonic comes around the corner here, he's going to kind of like look back and to the left, and that is going to manipulate these enemies to spawn right exactly where we want them. Enemies always are going to be spawning in the general area that we're looking, or based on areas that we're looking in. And so we'll use it here again, spawn this guy here, and then we usually have two more of them right behind, or one more, excuse me, right behind us. And we also have like an upgraded melee attack that we never really get explained to us, but it does a wide cone of damage.
Yeah, and I should mention that these are the former employees of the FBC. They have been taken over by an entity that we don't really know much about, but it's called the Hiss. So the Hiss has taken them over and is basically turned anybody who isn't wearing a certain device that we'll see later on into these like kind of zombie soldiers for them. So those are the big ones those are like the most common ones, his soldiers, and then we have the big guys right there who, they're not bosses, but they are sub-bosses.
And so we're going to grab our first control point here. We're going to be cleansing it of the Hiss that are here. The Hiss they're not like a real entity, they're more of like a resonance, almost like a form of a sound. And by removing it, we're going to access our control points. And control points, we're going to be seeing them throughout the whole run. They're just, think of them like bonfires in Dark Souls. We'll be able to upgrade our character here. They'll heal us. We'll be able to fast travel between them. They're going to play a very important role in the run. And so we're getting introduced to some of the other characters here in the game. This is Emily Pope. She was kind of like the second hand to Dr. Darling, who was responsible for a lot of the research that was done here at the FBC. And we're gonna be talking to her a lot throughout the run, and she'll give us our next objective as we go on and on.
Yep. And the reason that these people have not been infected by the hiss is because they are wearing something called HRAs. And these were devices passed out by Dr. Darling before all of this stuff went down, and that's keeping them from being corrupted by the hiss. So we have another combat right here. We're going to be going to the communications department to attempt to meet Tomasi, along with to get access to the hotline, which is another object of power like the service weapon we're using. We're doing a spawn minute right there.
Good minute.
Awesome. So we look over into that direction. Where's this guy? Is he over here? Oh, there we are.
Oh, there we go. It's got light spawns. Yeah. A little bit of RNG in this room for those last dudes. They can end up in some weird spots.
Perfect.
We can also shoot enemies, like they actually have hitboxes when they're suspended in air like that, which is pretty nice. You'll also see this kind of gray bar that's above certain enemies, and that's the kind of like a protection they have from the hiss. That our bullets from the gun are pretty much ineffective against it, but our melee attack and other abilities we'll find that do really, really well against it. When it comes to control points, we usually are going to end up skipping most of them, but some of them have these required animations that we have to sit through, and this one actually is fairly useful to us, so we will be coming back to this, or we'll be coming back to some of them in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of actually routed into it a lot, where we'll skip certain ones because it's just too fast. Or it's faster to do them without it. I'm going to be taking a couple safety ones that I normally wouldn't take in the round. Also, I talked over the bonk, I'm sorry. I talked over the greatest sound effects.
It's okay.
I'm going to redeem it, though. So right now, we are getting attacked by something that is launching objects at us, but we're going to do a cool little skip here, a dev-intended skip. Awesome, first try. So that's called a ladder skip, and that's going to bring us over to that floppy disk.
Yeah, and the floppy disk so that's an object of power. Objects of power are kind of like SCPs. They're objects that bestow certain abilities on people that interact with them. And so that one was a floppy disk that contained nuclear launch codes on it, and it now gave us the ability to throw things with our mind. So you notice that when we touched it, we also got teleported to this dimension. This is the astral plane. It's in control of that big kind of pyramid that you saw Demonic looking at called the board. They have some sort of stake in what's going on here at the FBC, though we're not going to learn a lot about that. But these areas generally serve as kind of like tutorials for the abilities we just got. They're also some sort of like both physical and cognitive realm that allows the board to communicate with us.
Yeah. So there's going to be a noticeable pattern is whenever we get a new ability to play with, we are going to be basically breaking the game almost immediately. So because we have our launch now, we're going to be doing our very first real skip of the game. This is called No Bossy. So normally the game wants you to actually do a boss fight here, but we're speedrunners, so what we're going to do is we're going to put this box here. We're going to grab this box, wedge it into this corner, jump into it, and come on.
You gotta find the right angle. It can be pretty specific, and also these guys like to come and interrupt you because they're very nice.
Yep. So let's try that again.
You want the box here generally to be at like a tilted angle. It makes it easier to kind of up clip into it. There we go.
Oh, I knew it.
Nice.
All right. So normally there's a boss fight here. This is actually probably where a lot of casual players got really frustrated or quit because it's a super hard boss your first time through. But we're just gonna clip through that floor. So whenever you jump into an object and you're holding it, it doesn't have any collision, but when you let go of it, it gains its collision back. So because of that, it pushes us through the floor and through the collision below it, and that's how we get out of bounds a lot of the times.
Yeah, there are multiple forms of prop clips. That one we generally just refer to as an up clip, but you'll see others coming up here fairly soon as well. Now we're in the Ocean View Motel. This is another kind of different realm. It's kind of like a kind of a gateway to other places that also influences our reality. There's a lot going on in this game. Again, really encourage you to play it. It's super good. But for now, this is just helping us spawn a bridge that takes us to the hotline. This is another SCP, or not the SCP. This is another object of power. Yeah, this is another object of power. But this one only really has a function in the narrative. It doesn't really have any function to us from a speedrunning perspective.
Yeah, so the main thing that happens here is that this is a way that the board can communicate with us directly, because when we are in the physical world, it has an issue in doing so. It comes out kind of jarbled.
Nice
it also allows... Thank you, yeah. It also allows Director Trench, who is the person who we saw dead at the very beginning of the game, to communicate with us via the bullet that is in his brain from the service weapon. So, you know, just normal,
Very
everyday
normal
stuff at the
things.
FBC.
Having a normal one here at the FBC.
So this is going to be our very first quit to menu. This game is timed by LRT rather than RTA, so it gets rid of these loading times. And what this will do is it'll actually return us back to the control point whenever we quit out and continue game. So this is going to take us all the way back to this checkpoint, which allows us to teleport right back to the central executive rather than having us walk there. Most of the time, it's also faster RTA as well. However, there are a couple of quit outs that are slower RTA but faster LRT that we do. That I'm not going to be doing for the marathon run unless I muscle memory it.
Did you get the hotline? I mean, how is it out there?
And so coming up here is probably one of the coolest tricks in like any speed game, assuming it works, and also one of the most iconic ones for this run. Realistically, it only saves a few seconds, but we're gonna go for it a couple times anyway, just because it's so cool to show off and it's a marathon setting. So menus in this game are a little interesting. This one has a hold to interact function. We can also bring up our inventory menu, and the inventory menu has a little bit of lag associated with it. So if we're frame perfect, we can actually overlap the two menus and then do some precise menuing after that to try and influence the game to behave in a certain state. So we'll see if it works. You'll know pretty much immediately if it works. This has been the most infamous trick that nobody's ever gotten in a marathon, so we shall see here. If you caught the AGDQ run, you will remember I tried this like 10 times and then ended up getting it until like way later in the game.
Yeah, so fingers crossed here. Even when you do it perfectly, sometimes it doesn't work. We don't really understand it too much.
Did you get the black screen?
I got a black screen.
So that means he actually got the trick, but the game soft locked.
Yeah.
So something that should be pointed out is that this trick only saves like 5 seconds. And generally speaking, like if we were to do it in like a PB attempt, you would just try it and then like doesn't get it, move on. Oh well, we lost that time. It's not a big deal. But we're gonna give it a couple shots, and it should be noted that this doesn't really have, as far as we know, this doesn't have anything to do with Demonic's execution. This is more just kind of like something happening within the game state. Once we get that menu overlap, we enter something known as like the glitched state, which allows a lot of strange things to happen.
Yeah. Like even I don't even think the devs actually know about it, like how it works exactly.
Yeah, something that I recommend doing after you watch this run. IGN actually did a devs react to my control speedrun last year, and they talk a lot about some of the glitches that we do. And this one just completely they don't know anything about. It's a really interesting watch, and I recommend it.
Yeah, it was patched out, but it wasn't like patched out specifically. Oh, wait, dang it. I'm gonna continue on. Unfortunately.
Yeah, good try. Good try.
If you check Twitter, Brian Otto and I will probably be tweeting out a little video clip of it showing it off. But essentially, Jessie turns into a gun. She loses her player model completely, and along with that, her camera gets distended, which allows us to use it to peek through walls.
You heard him correct. She turns into a gun. Like her player model disappears and she becomes a gun. Yeah, it's very interesting. So we have some pretty cool skips for this level called the Directorial Override. This is another kind of like up clip we're going to do with the prop there. That barrel can be a little bit finicky, so that was really nice getting that first try. And then we got another one right here, which uses like the best prop in the entire game. We're going to use this forklift chassis here. This thing is so versatile. It is so easy to clip out of bounds with, unlike a lot of other objects in this game.
I want to mention, even though we didn't get it, the gun trick is called Slidey McGunny.
Oh, yes, Slidey McGunny.
Yeah,
yes.
You'll see tons of great names for the tricks that we have throughout the game.
We have the best names. There's no other game that has better name skips.
So this is the only side quest we're going to be doing in the entire game because it gives us an extremely important ability. We have a little carousel horse up here that is another object of power that's going to give us the ability to dash.
A carousel horse.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense. You know, a carousel that's usually stationary is going to give us the ability to dash. So like I said, every time we get a new power, we're going to use it to almost break the game immediately. This trick was actually discovered by Brian Otto called the Astral Boink.
Most proud find, the Astral Boink.
So what we're going to do here is we are going to do 1, 2, 3. We're going to clip into that. It's going to push us up. And then we're going to push into this one. And then we're good.
Nice,
we're fine.
Nice.
That's really sketchy because if you're too far to the right there, you get teleported back to the beginning. So that was really nice. That skips a little kind of like movement tutorial / puzzle. And it only saves around 6 seconds, but it's really cool. I like it a lot.
All right, so now we are bound with the horse. We're friends for life. And that's going to be the only optional quest that we do in the entire game. But it's basically not optional. I can't imagine playing this game without it.
I'm sure there are people that did, to be honest, you know? When you're playing this casually, they really try their best to direct you down this hallway. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of allusions to it, so it's a very hard thing to miss.
Yeah.
I've seen many people that still miss it.
Impressive.
Yeah. So that is Auntie, that's our boss. We are the janitor's assistant. So normally in this game, you are supposed to do 2 things to stop the power plant from exploding and killing everyone. You're supposed to turn on the coolant pumps and turn on the energy converters, and that stops it from going haywire. And Auntie sends us to do this. However, Jesse is not going to do that. We don't have time for that. So what we did there is we went all the way that way for 2 reasons. We went there to get the evadability, and we went there to hit all of the soft lock prevention, or all the triggers for the game to prevent it from soft locking. But the end of the game is right there, and we're going to be doing something a little bit different from what we've done recently.
End of the level, not the
end of the level. I'm sorry. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that fridge to push us out of bounds. It's going to push us back into this room, and now we are at the end of it entirely, which saves a lot of time. That's probably the biggest skip in the game.
Yes, most likely. Anybody that played this game casually is going to remember just how confusing this area was and just how big it is. So this skips an enormous amount of content. And generally, like Demonic said, we're supposed to be doing some chores for the janitor here, but we don't, so we just call this trick the lazy assistant, because now we're done. Everything's taken care of.
So the main reason we had to come down here is for that. That is going to turn off the override that is stopping us from traveling to different sectors. So you saw that we were in the maintenance sector, and we're going to the executive center now. And there's a few of these areas in the games. They're kind of like, I guess, levels almost. This game doesn't play like it's not linear, but it's not open world. It's like a Metroid game where the game wants you to go back to certain areas later on as you get more and more abilities. So it does have a pretty good freedom of area where you're going to be going, and we're going to be traveling back to places that we've been to previously quite often.
We do have some skill trees here that just relate to our different abilities and our energy rating and everything like that. We just upgraded launch to 4, which is our main DPS. Another thing we haven't really touched on yet is we do have an energy meter that's in play. You'll see it's like that white bar at the top of the screen. Everything that we do that isn't our gun basically is tied to that. And so we're going to be, that's another resource that we're going to be managing alongside our weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So normally, this is also kind of where the routing changes a little bit from when Bryo did his run at GDQ.
Yeah.
Previously, what he did is he would get launch 5. I get an extra energy because we do a little bit more out of bounds movement. So we have an upcoming, actually technically 2 skips coming up here. The first one is going to be called 2 fight skip because it skips 2 fights.
Skips 2 fights. Great name.
And then after that's going to be Screaming Skip.
Yep. So this is a pretty difficult out of bounds. This level has had a lot of history within our speedrun community, and just not being able to be broken whatsoever. But thanks to the efforts of Flatty Wostock and S10PX, who are just like legends in this community in terms of the glitches that they found for us, this skips 2 fights that normally begin at the beginning, but we're still having to hit a lot of triggers out of bounds, and then it seamlessly flows into this next skip, which is really difficult. This is going to skip an interaction with those kind of really scary, screamy black orbs that we've seen. So Demonic very precisely hits a trigger right there. That's why you saw him kind of inching toward the wall, and then has to walk around this razor's edge along the outside of the building, and then do some tricky navigation to maneuver their way all the way over to the beginning of the next fight sequence. And we'll know that we hit the trigger if we hear, or we hit all the triggers if we hear dialogue as soon as we pop in.
We got it.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
That is not easy.
So now we have actually a really hard fight. A lot of this game is going to be combat optimization. That's how you can get really good times. So I'm going to be very careful here. So you see those guys that shot a rocket launcher at us? Those guys are actually one of the deadliest enemies in this game because they will drop down your health almost immediately. And the main thing about them is that those rockets are actually homing. And we almost got a nice
beautiful.
one.
That was really nice. Yeah, there's 6 enemies you have to clear here, and they all group up so nicely that you can get a multi-kill with that object there, which is actually a great segue to talk about something, combat optimization with launch specifically. So when you pull objects, you can kind of pull them through multiple enemies just like that. And when you throw them, it can also kill multiple. So anytime there's a dodge efficiency down there, by the way.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime that you are getting multi-kills with pull or getting pulled through damage or anything like that, it's saving like, you know, seconds or more. As you can see by our energy bar, it takes a lot of health to throw something. So anytime that we're able to get multiple kills with that, it is a huge time save. With speaking within terms of the combat, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely like one of the biggest things that you notice with this game between like the good runners and the great runners is how well their combat gets down. It can literally save you minutes. It's that big of a deal. So like right now what we're going to do is we're going to grab this, I'm going to throw it at them. And also everyone does everything a little differently. I'm going to group all these guys together and try and get some pull-throughs. We got a few of them.
Nice, dude. Yeah, these
So
enemies, I forget what they're called exactly, but they run at you and explode. So obviously you don't want to be
I think
exploded.
they're called Hiss Distorted. I can't quite remember.
Distorted's the invisible dudes, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Oh, okay. Launch is kind of weird sometimes. Occasionally, you'll get a time where she'll be pulling something and it just won't come over. Also, this is totally okay. You know, just normal elevator ride.
Watch the red arrow.
Does she know
Oh.
what happened to Dylan?
That's fine. This is the oldest house. That's actually like probably a very realistic possibility of something happening here.
Yeah. There's lots of signage about how the oldest house shifts in this game, and it'll talk about like, you know, if the bathroom shifts into a different dimension while you're on the break, like you don't get paid for that or something like that. Lots of great little tidbits like that.
It doesn't
Yeah.
count towards overtime.
Yeah.
So that was Marshall. She's the head of security, and she's probably the most badass character in this entire game. It's a shame we don't really see more of her, but she basically told us like kind of what's going on. So essentially there are these things called HRAs that we mentioned earlier. That's stopping everybody from turning into these hiss monsters. They are very, very important. I'm going to go back and make sure that no one's behind me.
Yeah.
I think there was one or two. I'm not seeing anyone, so it's fine.
Yeah, he's some good.
Probably won't be, but yeah, that's okay. So we need to get them working again because we have people in the safe rooms, which are those shelters over there, and that's keeping them from turning into hiss if they are not wearing something.
You called
there
it.
it is.
There was one back there somewhere. Yep.
So there's a reason that I'm doing this. I want my camera manip so these enemies will spawn in front of me rather than behind me. This is like one of the examples of a camera manip that can save a lot of time. Because if they spawn behind us, they spawn behind the pillars and they're really far away. There we go. That's an
There's a nice
example.
double kill. Yep.
There we go. Awesome. So that's the first part of this fight. But we need to get the HRA machine working so we can create more HRAs and therefore save more people from turning into these guys. So this is not a boss. It is considered a, like, I guess a sub-boss almost. It's just more of a named enemy, where this is a common enemy, but they're lightly stronger than the others. Also doing another manip here, we want to be facing this way, so these enemies will spawn in front of us, and that, again, saves a lot of time later on.
And something we should note that we haven't touched on yet, we're playing on the earliest available patch of the game. We're playing on what if we just name as 0.96. This was this was a release that was sent out to press and influencers before the actual game's release, and it has some interesting properties. Alongside all of these glitches being possible, big enemies like that have the big shields actually.
12, yes.
Nice. We got a 12%. We'll touch on that in a sec. They actually have considerably less shield health, so it makes these fight sequences quite a bit faster. We got a 12% dodge. There are random drops that can happen throughout the run, and a 12% dodge modification means that we use 12% less energy, and when we're using and actually a 12% one means that we get an entire extra dash, that we can use before our energy depletes. So that's a really lucky drop.
Sounds like Darwin built that.
So now we're going to be coming to a puzzle that has the same solution every time. This is basically like a lore area, nothing too special. So if we have any donations, now would be the time.
Wonderful. So to get some donations in, I can tell the people about some donation incentives that we have coming up. So 2 hours after this run, we have a run of Grand Theft Auto 2 all missions, and you can select the game language of that. We do have the choice between English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. Me being German, of course, that's not the proper choice. So, yeah, no donations yet for that bid war. So anything can be sniped with just a single $1. So get your donations in for that. We also do have a bonus game coming up a little later on. We are sitting at $330 out of 400 for that. So you may want to go for that to just, have a little more marathon to watch, which is also a nice thing. So yeah, please do keep your donations coming, you all you lovely people.
All right, perfect. So right there, we powered up the HRI machine, and it's using a rock called Black Rock, which is found in something called a threshold. Unfortunately, it's shattered, so we need to get a new one because otherwise they cannot make the new machines from it. So we are tasked by Marshall to go find that. In exchange, she is going to give us some information about her brother. So the reason Jessie even goes to the FBC in the first place is to find her missing brother of 17 years. And that's kind of her main motivation throughout this entire game, is to find out what happened to him because of an event in their childhood that we're not going to go over because that's spoiler territory, and you should really just play this game yourself. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot. This run really does not even scratch the surface of content in this game.
Yeah, and along with that, this is also the legacy patch, so you're missing out on so many new upgrades to the systems, the DLC, the mods. There's a lot of great stuff, but this is probably like the most tech-heavy part, like the most annoying tricks I would say in the game.
Very cool trick coming up. I love this one. This was another Flatty Wastock find. Shoutouts to Flatty, we miss you. So objects have interesting properties when you damage them, specifically boxes.
Go.
Oh, that's
that
perfect.
Good.
Just perfect. So you damage that box, and then you kind of just place it inside of you. You put it above your upper torso, and then when you release it, you just float upwards. We call that trick Boxy McFloaty. So that was that's a great trick, and we actually go upwards through a hole in the ceiling that we're not supposed to be able to access till later due to some of the Metroidvania elements in the game, and it saves around 22 seconds over doing the normal routing that we're supposed to do through here. So really, really cool.
Yeah. So we're going back to the Ocean View Motel. This is actually probably the last one that I think we do in the run where we do it the correct way. Yeah. So that's going to open this bridge, and now we're going to the next trick.
Yeah, so this mission is called Threshold. It's pretty aptly named because this mission, from a speedrun perspective, is definitely the threshold into like a real run or just another run that you reset. This trick in particular is pretty complicated, and Lem, if you want to take this one, I know you have a specific setup for it. So.
Yeah. So obviously different props have different properties, and this one is unique in that sense, where 2 of the sides doesn't have collision, but the rest do. So the most consistent way I found of getting out of bounds with this one, in this spot at least, is not having the door facing up, so that you have some kind of collision above you. Because most of the props wants to push you upwards.
This taking multiple tries is very normal, by the way. This is one of the most inconsistent prop clips in the game. Whereas with other props, we're getting clipped into them and moving upward, or we're riding on top of them, having us push us out of the map. This one, we're throwing it, and we have to be like jumping at the same time. This is definitely not unexpected for it to take multiple tries. So, there we go. Very good save too. Super easy to jump out of bounds after you get that. So now we're gonna take some very precise platforming across the out of bounds here. And then the last little scary part that we have to do once we get over the top is actually getting back inbounds. It's a very tight window to get back inbounds here. So we're gonna look right here, and then ideally dash enough.
Oh no!
That's so frustrating. So that's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, this was and so the thing that is the worst part about this is we have to go all the way back to the elevator. Fortunately, we don't have to go through the motel or anything again. We can just kind of walk through the fire break, which was that little bridged area. It is a bit of a trek back, though it's not too bad. It just sucks to get that far. So
and there wasn't really too much that I was doing wrong there. It's just sometimes it doesn't really like to let you back in. Yeah,
the window to get back inbounds there is pretty tight. But yeah, this skip is usually just called Who is Arish, or Arish skip. Probably the least inventive name in the game, because there's a character named Arish that we were supposed to encounter for the first time in the second mission that we skipped. And then we're supposed to encounter him again, and then we skip him again, so we just never meet this character despite him being pretty integral to the story overall.
Oh no. I can save this.
Yeah, so she's stuck right now, and the way that you save it is you have to manip the camera so that the object gets highlighted, and then once it's highlighted, you can grab the object, and that will allow you to drop back inside. You can see it getting highlighted every now and again. It's just a matter of getting the right angle on the camera. It's really frustrating to be in this scenario. Sometimes meleeing can also work, but this is a pretty tight spot to be in.
Yeah, this trick is just going all sorts of wrong here. I mean, you can kind of see the out of bounds, which is nice, but I think I'm gonna.
This is a beautiful out of bounds. Look at that! Look at that level construction right there.
This is the only
so
trick that I dislike in the game. Every other trick is super cool and really neat. This one just sucks.
I think pretty much everybody that has ever ran the legacy patch of this game will agree. I guess some other things we can talk about right now is there are a lot of different ways to run this game, and we have a lot of pretty cool categories. Most recently, a lot of the inbounds runners have been pushing the game a ton, and inbounds is a category. Shout outs to Bucky, by the way. Inbounds is a category that relies a ton on a lot more combat optimization and spawn manipulation, and does a lot of things that you wouldn't normally see in a legacy run. So legacy is definitely we separate by patch, so legacy and current patch. Legacy is definitely the more popular run for the game. I'm just gonna do it normally. Okay, fair.
Yeah, just that makes sense. More time. We basically saw the trick, which is really cool. But yeah. Like Brian was talking about, the skip saves 30 seconds and it can really kill your run. So that's the main thing. But this is kind of like some more optimization you can see. Inbounds does a lot more combat, and it's actually really difficult because these enemies this game only has one difficulty. There's no easy, normal, or hard, anything like that. So you pretty much get what you get. And this game is definitely not like the easiest thing in the world. It's not like Dark Souls difficult, but it definitely is harder than the average game.
Yeah. It should be noted for folks that are interested too, in later patches they did bring in an assist mode, which makes the game easier in a variety of ways for your choosing. So if you ever played this game and found like mold 1 too difficult or something like that, there is an assist mode, which is really, really cool.
Yep. So Who is Arish skips this dialogue and that fight below. This is my favorite character, by the way, and I'm really sad that we don't ever get to see him at any percent.
You didn't mess up the trick. You just really wanted to see Arish.
Yeah, he's a great character. Trust me.
There's a pretty neat quick kill strat coming up here. So we get introduced to probably my least favorite enemy in the whole game. This section terrified me in my casual playthrough. These are the Hiss Distorted. They one-shot you, almost. They turn invisible. They like scream a lot. They're very scary, but if we get a couple pull-throughs, nice. Beautiful
Good
quick kill. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that's like really the only time we have to really deal with them in the speedrun, which is a blessing because those guys are awful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens is if you don't kill them early, what they will do is they will turn invisible and go flying around, and you can kind of see them. However, launch will not lock onto them automatically, so you need to manually aim. And if they get close to you, they're going to one-shot you. This game has a prevention to where no matter where your health is at, you can't go from 100 to 0. So it kind of saves you from like dying immediately, but they'll put you at that 1 HP, which is a very scary thing in this game.
I guess the thing to talk about too with replenishing your health is you'll notice a lot of time when we're killing enemies, they drop these little blue bits on the ground. Those are referred to as source, but those are going to be the things that are going to be healing us. So it rewards you for playing aggressively a lot of the time. Kind of think of a similar philosophy to any of the modern Doom games, like push forward combat philosophy is going to be present here as well, where we want to be in people's faces a lot of time and collecting the little things that they drop to make sure that we're not dropping too low on health.
All right, we're gonna do a little skip here. This is another example of how important this evade is and how scary it can be. So this game, you cannot buffer inputs. So I can't just keep on mashing it and get it every time perfectly. I have to kind of time it to a rhythm, and that rhythm can be very spooky sometimes.
Yeah. So if you input evade at like the last frame that your current evade is happening, it just is like, that input actually doesn't exist, and then you just kind of like drop to your death. So it could be, yeah. It could
that's
be
like an
difficult.
example where like, that's probably the most common example that you can be very screwed if it drops at the wrong time, because then won't get enough height and then she'll fall to her death. It's kind of why I grabbed that checkpoint right before I did it, just so if that happened, we wouldn't have to go all the way back to the elevator again.
Yeah, that's not something that we grab in a PB attempt. That is definitely a marathon safety strat.
Yep. So we're now in the threshold. This is not part of our reality. This is part of a different reality, which creates this amazing skybox texture.
Super sick.
So this is where we're going to be getting that black rock. It has, I guess, anti-OOP capabilities, where it makes it so they just don't really work as well. It's never really explained, but it's pretty much just like a catch-all for like, if it's haunted or weird, then it'll probably be like okay with it. Also, you're gonna see me like intentionally not kill these guys. There's a very specific reason for doing that. We're fine. We got this.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, the rocket dudes here always scare me because there's a couple of them and they can just wombo combo you.
Yeah.
So we actually don't kill them though for a reason, and that is because if we kill them, it spawns in way more enemies.
Yeah.
Including a big boy. But they're still scary because the rockets actually have a GPS tracker, so they'll track you even if you're doing stuff. It's not great tracking, but like it's still enough to where it's like
accurate enough to where you're like, God damn. Yeah. Yeah, pretty. This is probably coming up here is probably the most recent big development since my AGDQ run. So yeah, this is definitely more Lemura and Demonic's territory. So Lem, if you wanna talk about this one, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, now the next mission. Now we're actually gonna go find Dylan because Marshall was kind enough to. Yeah, Dylan's the brother. Marshall finally gave us the location and stuff, so now we're gonna go check on him. In the start of this area, there has been some big developments recently. Before, you would go and pick up the closest control point and then go from there. But instead, we're gonna go out of bounds here with this what we just called the barbecue.
Wow,
really
that was
know
a very
what it
quick
is.
out of bounds.
That was
Nicely
fast,
done.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we navigate specifically around here because we need to gain more height. With
Nice.
We're fine.
Nice.
We're fine.
Yeah,
That's a
height
really
is
scary
big-
one. If you lose height there, you're dead. There's
Yeah.
no recovery for it.
yeah.
Before we get a certain ability, height is a very hot commodity in these out of bounds segments.
And take an extra one just
So
in case.
we want to go over here, and you'll see now one of the
Neum.
coolest glitches, the Neum. We think this happens because it tries to like
So
bring you to
sick.
the 0-0 coordinates. I think.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
happens when you try to mantle like two surfaces at the same time or something.
Yeah, and it brings you to essentially what is the 0-0 coordinates on the map. And it's super sick. We've wanted to route it into the game forever, and we finally did. And this is a really cool trick where actually, so the Ocean View Motel obviously doesn't exist outside of the game or outside of the map that we're currently loaded into. So we can abuse the way that the level is structured. And so by going to a very specific spot out of bounds, we just kind of like drop down into the solve room for one of the Ocean View Motel puzzles. So that skip is massive. It skips like a control point animation. It skips multiple fights. It skips an Ocean View Motel puzzle. We call that the Ocean Neum Motel because it makes use of that trick that we talked about where you get teleported. That we obviously call a Neum, N-Y-O-O-M.
Yeah, because it just neums you away to another part of the map. So we're gonna do a little skip here. We're gonna be walking on this edge. I've definitely totally not lost a run doing this before.
Lemura has caused me to lose a run on this segment before, actually. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's like a rite of passage for any runner is to die during that little
sure.
segment.
One of my greatest
But,
achievements, making you die here.
But we have no long elevator here, so now's a good time for donations.
Wonderful. Please let me remind everyone what we are collecting money for, because we are collecting money for Alzheimerfonden, which is the Swedish national fundraising organization focusing on Alzheimer's disease and other dementia-related diseases. The goal of the council's work is to get maximum dividends on the research money for affected patients and their relatives. We also encourage collaboration between researchers in different universities. Alzheimerfonden also enables training for caregivers on the subject of dementia. So they really do need the money to make the lives of all dementia patients as as comfortable as possible, and as well to research for a hopeful cure so that no more people have to live with with dementia or Alzheimer's. So it's really important to get that money. So please do keep donating for this awesome cause.
All right, so we just ran past all of those enemies. Fun fact, they can still hit us as we're going here. That's why I'm looking backwards, waiting
I
for them
thought
to
I fixed
despawn.
that. Yeah. Does looking backwards cause him to despawn?
I don't know if it
Or-
does. I think I just checked to make sure there's not a rocket
Oh.
launcher aimed at me. But here we go. This is the coolest cutscene in the game, and this kind of explains it perfectly. There was a TV, and now it's doing this.
Yeah. This is the only unskippable cutscene in the whole game, and I'm also super okay with that because it's just really sick.
Yeah. With no context to the game, this pretty much sums it up entirely.
Yeah.
So
If you
we're
don't want
coming
to
up
play
to
the game
the
after watching this, then
Oh, for
I
sure.
don't know what will.
So we're coming up to the only boss fight that we do in any percent. In Legacy, which is the earliest patch, there are 10 bosses in the game. We skip 9 of them, and only 2 are mandatory for the entire playthrough. So we're gonna be fighting Salvador. It's kind of a shame because the bosses are all really cool and we skip a lot of content by avoiding them, which is kind of a sad thing. If you're interested in seeing the bosses, we do have an all bosses category that both me and Brian have times for, and Lemura has done as well. So if you want, you can check that out. Brian has a great run of it. But we're gonna be doing the first fight here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait for him to put his hands up. And then we're going to throw a bunch of stuff at him. He is very scary because he can throw really, really powerful stuff at us. So I'm going to be taking this a little slowly, waiting for him to throw those things.
Getting him down to half HP on like before the first fight sequence right here is really, really nice, by the way. The Demonic has a really nice strat there. So we're trying to get a lot of pull-through damage, and we are melting Salvador right now, which is pretty nice. This is kind of a little bit of a hide-and-seek that we're playing with him right now, because like Demonic said, he will bring us down to a one-hit if we're not careful. And this is the part of the game where we start to really feel the effects of the speedrun, where we're not leveling ourselves up a whole lot. So a lot of these enemies, a lot of the ads, they're all going to be pretty strong compared to us right now in terms of when they hit us, just because our health pool is so low. But fortunately, we have just beefed up our launch damage and are able to deal with them pretty handily. It's going to one-hit kill the non-shielded enemies and brings the shielded enemies down to one hit as well. So Demonic is cleaning up this fight really, really well, just this last guy, and that is it. And now we are going to get the most important ability in the entire run by far.
Yes, so this is the Levitate. This is going to facilitate literally the rest of the skips. I promise you guys that we will break something here in just a moment. Every time we get a new ability, we do something cool. This is kind of a dev-intended skip. We have to go over there. There's nothing that stops us from going over there, so we kind of just get going all the way around instead, which is really nice. So that's kind of an example, and we're going to have another one coming up here as well, but this ability is really, really good for out-of-bounds navigation. Like, this game pretty much gave us, like, the perfect tools to do it with Evade and Levitate and Launch.
Yeah, Levitate facilitates pretty much everything we do from here on out. The first thing we're going to do is a pretty nifty little skip. Generally, you'd have to do quite a bit of platforming and routing to get up to the second floor here, but actually, outside of the walls, there are those little rings, and so we're going to use Levitate to just perfectly position ourselves on top of one of the rings here and skip quite a bit of platforming. There we go.
Yeah. So it's also worthy to mention that you can launch off of objects, but if I'm floating in the air, I can't do anything else. I can't levitate back up. So keep that in mind for a couple of areas later on that I have to be pushing off of something. But here we go. We find our brother Dylan's cell. Unfortunately, he is not in there anymore. He has returned to the executive sector where we were talking to Emily Pope, and we find that he's been corrupted by the hiss, but he's a little bit different than everybody else. He's not as bad, I guess, is the right word.
Yeah. Something like that. Play the game.
Yeah. Play the game. We can't explain it very well in the amount of time that our run allows us to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it should be noted that we're skipping through dialogue really, really quick. That's because, as a speedrunner community, we agreed to allow skipping dialogue to scroll wheel. And we actually have limits on what exactly you can do with the scroll wheel. We have an auto hotkey script in place that prevents free scroll mice from saving seconds every time there's dialogue sequences like this, especially for this one, which takes there's literally so much dialogue here.
If not, you would hear this just the entire time.
Yeah. So it saves our hands from having to mash for the entire run, and also keeps the game a bit more fair. So yeah.
Yeah. You could definitely, if you mashed really hard and really fast enough and got good at it. When I first started learning this game, I was like, I don't need the macro, and I just tried doing it myself, and you have to put in some work. You have to mash your life depends on it. But yeah, and it's just because you can only advance dialogue one line at a time.
Yeah. So a very cool skip coming up here. This is just going to immediately showcase what exactly we can do with Levitate and Evade for out of bounds. This works a little bit differently than it used to, like at the last time this was on the marathon, just because we don't get the control point that we would normally access here. So we're going to use the same out of bounds setup as we used before. And then essentially,
that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, essentially what's going to happen is we're going to be going out of bounds and then hitting different trigger locations throughout the map as we're out of bounds. We need that prop, so we're going to reset real quick. Yeah.
It's important to note that in the legacy patch of this game, I have to hold down my launch to hold things. In current patch, you can toggle it, so I can just press a button and it'll pick it up. Here I have to hold it, and if you let go of the F key, it throws it instead of the other key, which drops it.
And yeah, so this skip has pretty cool history. Definitely one of the older skips in the game. This is going to basically skip the entire mission for the face of the enemy. This has had a lot of optimization done behind it from a lot of the runners throughout our game's history, especially like iTunes when the game first released. Kevbot did some optimization here, and Tansu is responsible for a lot of the more recent optimizations for it. So it's just a lot of out of bounds navigation in between, different trigger points, and navigating the out of bounds in this game can be pretty scary just due to the way that the game handles loading stuff in. It'll stream in other parts and automatically stream out others. This right here used to be like the scariest part of the whole run. So there's a little lip that's sticking out of the floor right there. Nice. And you just have to re-jump on it because that's exactly where the trigger is. Then you have to get carefully back right there without going in bounds. And from here, it is things are a little bit less scary, though there's still kind of one more thing we have to accomplish.
Yeah. So this is another, this is a really good showcase of how the levitate works. So normally you lose height after a certain amount of time. And because we don't want to lose too much height without like losing our energy, we do 2 dashes or 2 evades, and then we let it refill, and then we use it entirely. And that's the best kind of way to move without losing height. Up down here. So this used to be really difficult. Now it's kind of a little bit easier. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're gonna land right about here. This is gonna stream in. And this used to be really harder until we figure out like where to go. So I'm gonna do 3 dashes over here. I'm going to land on those green lights, bounce off of it, and then go right inbounds here. And if the door turns red, we are in the clear. Nice.
It always, dude, I swear, it always likes to take its time when you're really worried about it too. You're like, oh god, did I miss one?
Yeah. So this is another really hard fight. I'm gonna be doing this very safely. But this is probably one of the hardest fights in the game.
Yeah, there are a lot of enemies that get spawned in here in multiple waves. There's those explodey guys, there are the big boys that are going to hurl things at us, and there are a lot of shielded enemies with shotguns, which are going to chunk our health. So there are definitely more aggressive and faster ways you can play this, but if we die here, we go all the way back to the elevator, and we'd have to do the majority... He's vibing? Yeah, we would have to do the majority of that navigation again, so... okay. So for marathon safety, we are definitely playing this fight in a much more conservative manner. This is the most scary part of the fight.
Guy.
Yeah.
What?
So this is a named flyer, and the real scary thing about these guys is that they do a lot of damage, and they're also quite hard to hit. So we're trying to bait out dodges and also hit and then hit them while they're kind of in like a recovery state. There we go.
Nice.
And so yeah, so they can only dodge 1 time, and then they will end up like not being able to dodge. So we always want to have at least to be able to do 2 launches there, because otherwise they will hit you. And that ability that you saw him charging upward, that will kill us pretty quickly.
Yes.
There we go. We look at this computer, and we don't quit out too early here. We wait for that to happen.
Definitely nobody has ever quit out too early.
Nope, never done that before in my entire life. And new mission. All right, so we are coming up to the second to last mission here. The last one's gonna be Polaris, where our run will end. And what we're gonna be doing here is we essentially need to get to the source of the hiss, which we learn is a slide projector, because that makes perfect sense. Just a totally normal slide projector, nothing wrong with it. But what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be getting an ability called Ground Slam. This lets us expend the rest of our energy bar in exchange for slamming to the ground or upwards, one of the 2.
Yeah. Another notable difference between this and current patch, or inbounds for that matter, is that we can actually slam upwards. This got patched out when they released the Foundation patch, just due to some of the level design choices they made in there. But it allows for some really nifty movement and a kind of neat little skip later on. Slam doesn't play a super important role in the run, though it could in the future, because we found some pretty cool new tech with it recently. But for now, yeah, we're just going to use it for movement purposes. This is an out of bounds that we will see twice in the run. So Demonic is trying to get the open side of the fridge facing him, and we have to ride this thing pretty much all the way up.
It's terrible all the time.
Yeah, we have to ride it all the way up and then jump off it again. Because there's this kind of like little hole in the ceiling that we're trying to get through, and that's pretty much the only real way that we can clip out of bounds. There is a possible accidental neum that you can get here if you like end up mantling as you're going out of bounds.
Oh yeah, that's right. And then you can tell, like, you just basically just drop straight down below this floor. Come on, there we go.
Nice.
Yes, there we go. And so we'll be seeing this again later, but for now, this is going to be a pretty short trip. We just want to. This skips a mandatory or like a mandatory fight we would have to do. And allows us to get to the other side of the wall right here. There's a trigger that we have to hit like kind of in the middle of the bridge before we can basically go and finish the mission.
Yep. So this is the ashtray maze. This is a endless maze where if we try to go through it, we will just constantly loop around for eternity. So we need to find Ati. Unfortunately, Ati is on vacation, but he's going to be kind enough to go off of his vacation to help us out. So we need to still get to him, however. So the game normally wants you to do a bunch of stuff, go all the way around, look in the main sector, go to his office, do all this stuff. That's really slow. So we're just going to go straight to him.
Yeah, this was a slight optimization to this skip that was found by KevBot when he was running the game. So generally speaking, we're going to get out of bounds here, kind of like turn and instantly like turn around, look for the light to kind of orient ourselves. And then it's a very long, slow fall with levitate to reach the next portion. We're going to bring up the mini-map here, and we'll be using, keep an eye on the red arrow. That is going to indicate where our player is, and that's going to allow us to know where exactly we're going. We're looking for the little question marks in the top left corner of your screen there.
Yep. So I usually keep my minimap open until I see a change of light. Be right about now. Give some extra wait time, and then we go through. We want to get into here before everything loads in, otherwise you have to drop down a different way. All right. I don't have a timer, so I'm just gonna hope for the best.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So.
So.
Yeah. Go for it, Lem.
Yeah. Okay. So. For this skip in particular, you don't actually have to do any of the fighting over there. You just have to wait for the gondola to arrive, and that takes exactly 90 seconds. But before we figured out that it took exactly 90 seconds, we kind of did like this ritual thing where you kind of like...
It was like a Call of Duty Zombies Easter egg. We would land on the elevator and then hit the elevator button back, then levitate off, then run around in a circle 3 times and hit the button there.
Yeah, but we can kind of just wait over here and since usually you have a timer up, or well, most people have a timer up when they run the game, so you can kind of just like count off 90 seconds using that. But another method you can use is to see when the last wave of enemies spawn on the other side.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I always forget about that for some reason. I was gonna say, do you just want me to tell you when it's been 90 seconds? But yeah, no, that makes more sense.
Should be okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, essentially the trigger to complete the level spawns in as soon as the gondola makes the trip all the way over to the other side. We're not aware of any other way to advance this past that. Obviously, if you could, it would save a lot of time, but this is the best we got, and we already skipped a ton of the content here anyway, so...
In the meantime, we have time for maybe 1 or 2 quick donations if there are any.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. We have a $5 donation by Xoneris saying, "Hey Demonic, Brian Otto, Lemura, gotta say, sick run so far. Cool tricks, awesome commentary. Also, shout out for Chat. Shout out to Chat for being cute. Cheers." Yeah, Chat has been really cute from what I've been seeing. And we also have a $50 anonymous donation. Thank you very much for that. Also, a quick announcement. I was talking about the GTA 2 bid war. There has been an issue where the options weren't showing up on the tracker. They are now, so you can now donate towards it. Sorry for that.
Awesome. So now we are running into Ati, and for Finn, holiday is holy. He's gonna give us his Pony Walkman, not Sony, and that is going to allow us to navigate the ashtray maze. Or is it? So this was probably one of the coolest parts of the entire game, and I have some really bad news for you if you play this casually and you have not seen this run before. Because we're speedrunners and we don't like fun, obviously, we just skip all the hard parts. We just, walk through walls. We're going to be skipping the ashtray maze in a pretty cool way, at least.
Yeah, this is probably the oldest skip in our game's history, I would think. This hasn't changed pretty much since it was first found. But it is pretty neat when it happens. So, or at least one part of it is. So we're gonna use the same out of bounds setup that you saw before. And by the way, if you want to see the ashtray maze, very much recommend, once again, playing the game. We're going to be doing the same out-of-bounds setup. And you saw earlier, if you were watching during Directorial Override, when you put yourself inside a geometry, it kind of pushes you upward out of it. So imagine that, but on a wall like the size of a skyscraper. So, just going all the way up to the top of the fire break wall here. And then now what we're going to do is, so you see that big glob of gray? That is the ashtray maze. We're just going to literally brute force our way past the entire thing. This is pretty much as natural a skip as it gets. So we're just literally flying across the entire thing. And we want to stay kind of above where it is on the map, because if we go directly over it, there's a lot of random geometry and stuff that we can fall into, or it can kill us or whatever. So we're just going all the way around the outside. Our goal, again, and we are the red arrow on the map again, just for reference. Our goal is the little question marks in the bottom right. We'll be coming through the very top there. We're going to hit a trigger and then move on to absolutely the scariest part of the entire run.
Yeah, it's annoying because this is literally at the very end of the game, and this fight is the hardest fight out of all of them. Like, it's not even close. Even for any category, no matter what abilities you have, they made this fight like Dark Souls level of difficult.
Yeah, it's so difficult that in later patches they actually added more like safety checkpoints for players. So that is, I think that speaks to its difficulty for sure.
Yep. Unfortunately, we're playing on Legacy, so we do not have that luxury. They are generous, at least. We do have this checkpoint right up in here, which I don't go for, and I don't think Bryo goes for anymore.
Yeah. Basically, if you're doing a record run, if you're going to like a PB attempt, going for record, and you die in Polaris, like that's it anyway. So generally speaking, if you're going for like a big run here, you would just skip it because it ends up saving a few seconds.
The funny thing is, I still went for it.
Yeah.
So
I think Bryo went in for his PB too, but that's because it was so good that he could recover it.
Yeah,
But-
pretty much. Yeah.
Normally they don't.
That was a cool upward slam that we were talking about. That skips a rather significant portion of platforming that we'd have to do. Another
Also gonna
slam.
do a grand slam up there. Only time we do that, but it feels pretty good to do because in this area we are actually not able to dash or use anything. So we have another one of these puzzles. Those are very annoying to remember the combinations for. Definitely
Yeah.
don't do other ones in those spots instead and then get completely confused on how to fix it.
Yep, and so this is the Polaris fight. This is the last. This is like the final big thing in the game, and it also comes at the very end of the run. So definitely not scary at all. Are you waiting for energy? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So
just so I had it.
so there are 6 siphons that we're gonna have to cleanse that are siphoning energy away from this big thing in the middle here. That is important to the story that we haven't touched on, so but it doesn't matter. The thing with these siphons is they each take around like 5 to 6 seconds to cleanse. But
Go away. Oh my god.
If you take
Okay, we're
any
good.
damage during them, you have to redo the whole thing. And we're super under leveled at this point in terms of our health. So if we get hit, we just get absolutely chunked by these dudes. So there is quite a bit of RNG that goes on here. It's definitely it's really scary. This is looking okay so far. This last one, things can get pretty hairy pretty quick because they like to throw grenades at you over here. The positioning when you're cleansing the siphons is very, very important in terms of blocking enemy line of sight. And this went good. Okay, you can hear the grenade, but that's pretty far away, so we're good to go. Now we're gonna go for a trick called No Fighty Satellitey. Shout out to KZ Fru for naming that one. If we manip the camera properly and do this siphon right here, it's possible to do this whole thing without taking damage, and if we do, it skips a big fight here. Perfect.
We got it. Let's go.
Awesome,
Woo!
awesome.
good.
That's super important. That saves a lot of time. That fight can be really, really scary. So we've actually, I don't know if it looks like it, but we've done most of the hard stuff so far. This actually gets easier as we go. So getting no fighting was really important. Right here, all these dudes have automatic weapons, so just for safety, we can clear out most of them. The less people shooting at us, the less chance we have of getting shot. And a lot of times these guys end up being stormtroopers, knock on wood, sorry if I cursed you. But this usually goes pretty well. There we go. And we only got one more left. So time is coming up in about like 30 seconds here. Be ready on that. So we just have one more to cleanse, and it'll be at the cutscene here. So generally speaking, this looks scary, this last setup, but you'd have to be extremely unlucky to get hit here. Again, sorry.
Which
if
I usually
cursed you.
am, so we'll see. All right, so we did it. Woo.
A perfect Polaris in a marathon. You love to see it, dude.
Yeah, right at the end too. Time is gonna be coming up here when this cutscene starts, so make sure to get ready on that. And then, wait for it. Time. All right.
I can't believe you didn't
Nice.
take a hit through that whole thing.
That was like
Yeah,
the
that
most
was
insane
impressive.
Polaris
Yeah.
ever. That was better than my PV.
That's what you get for suffering through. Demonic has suffered through so many bad Polarises in their attempts lately. Yeah.
Yeah.
GG,
Oh,
dude. That was
man.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, so we'll do a quick shout out. I'm sorry, I got adrenaline pumping through me, so I'm like
Hello?
going on
Hello?
and figure everything out.
Demonic?
Hello?
Are you here? Are you here? We can't hear you.
I'm trying.
What's going on?
Have you seen this before, Len?
No. This is weird.
What's that?
I don't know.
Is Demonic? Did his webcam cut out? Did it? Is he okay? No, okay, he's fine.
Does his PC crash or something?
I mean, he's still live, so.
All right, so actually, timer's going to be going again here because you guys got psyched out. So this game has what's called a fake ending, and it's showing the real world is exactly what it's happening. It was all in her head, and now we're just in boring office worker. Never the janitor's assistant. But yeah, so this game has a fake ending where the hiss gets into Jesse, and let me tell you, first time I saw that, I was a little mad, not gonna lie. I was like, that's how we're ending it? But no, we are going to be continuing on here. I have a little bit more gameplay for you guys.
Yeah, so we're stuck in a loop now. We've kind of been taken control of by the hiss, and so we have to repeat a lot of office tasks. There are 3 cycles that we're going to be doing here, and generally speaking, a different task is optimal every single time. And then from here, we got to take the director's mail to their office. This was a great kind of dupe out here, and it's very easy to just keep doing this in like infinite loops when you're playing casually. Thematically, this segment usually ends up working like really, really well.
Yeah. I think probably in my casual playthrough, I think I went through like 10 cycles before I realized.
Oh, I got the news! Yes! Let's go!
Nice.
All right, so if you mantle into a cutscene, that happens. That actually lost me time, but it was really cool to show off because normally it spawns you right there.
Anything.
Yeah, so what happened there specifically, it's kind of like a mantle nume. So when you mantle as you enter a cutscene that teleports you, the game tries to put you back to where you mantled. But since the game is loaded in, you just crash into the geometry instead of actually going to your mantle location.
That was kind of serious. I almost got into the wall. That would have been that would have been really bad. Here we go. Cleaned up some coffee cups. Now we got our mail, so we're going to be delivering this to the director's office once again. It's also important to note that this isn't a flashback or anything like that. This is kind of a weird alternate reality in her head.
Nightmare sequence.
Yeah, but it's still like it's still physical. Like it's not just all in her head completely. It's hard to explain without playing the game, and even playing the game, it's still hard to explain. But now I just need to pick it up one more time. Fun fact: if you jump into that guy, it's kind of like right next to him, you can accidentally soft lock. So don't do that.
Did that happen to you, Lem?
That did happen to me. Yes.
That's how I know about it.
Too.
Also, there's
One of the worst
Ati. Hi,
things.
Ati.
Like any good speed game, control runners have, you know, just dozens and dozens of stories of ridiculous ways that their run has died to random stuff.
Yeah.
on the last fight, we were talking about how hard it was. I know I made it look easy. I have lost 3 world record pace runs there almost back to back in one day before, and let me tell you, I was very grumpy.
He was in a great mood. He was in a really good mood.
Polaris is just notorious for destroying your runs.
Yeah. So this part's coming up. Like, this is a really intense part in the narrative. Like, you're so stressed out. You had the fake ending. You don't know what's going on. And then the game throws you this excellent cutscene here. This is the part where you can spam your sour please or whatever dance emotes you have.
Do we have time for a quick donation?
Just after this really quick.
Okay, sure.
Oh, best part.
Yeah. That is the voice of Alan Wake, by the way, if you've ever played Alan Wake.
Yeah,
and also the voice of Max Payne, too, right there.
Shout outs to Matthew Porretta. It must have been such a fun time making this game, especially all those like live action sequences. This is such a great cutscene.
All right, we have time for one quick donation, but we're back in the real world, and we're going to be going after the slide projector to take down the hiss.
Wonderful. We do have a $35 anonymous donation without a comment, but thank you nonetheless. And that one is going partly towards the Messenger New Game Plus, naming the character Katana Zero. So that's the first option there. You may want to snipe that because only $5 went to there, so it's not that much to snipe.
All right, so we have one last hard trick coming up here. This part's actually easy. So normally this area has a lot of really hard difficult enemies, but this is kind of like your super badass, like at the end of the game enemies. So like they're all powered up, but so are you. We're gonna be skipping them unfortunately because the triggers to actually hit these moving platforms that are gonna be coming up are still there, even though you don't see them. So we're just gonna be flying over into their direction really quick. I have missed this in all of our ESA practice runs. I really hope I don't do it here because I'm gonna feel very silly. I never miss it in actual run attempts. But every time, Brian's a bad luck.
The first time he did this, he was like, yeah, this is way safer than doing it the normal way, and then proceeded to fail it in 2 practice runs in a row.
Yeah.
There's a little hole in the geometry here that allows us to skip the final fight. We're very fortunate that it's here because this final fight would take a while. So he's going to try and slam in a specific spot.
We got it, we're
good
fine.
Job. Good job.
Perfect.
There we
Didn't
go.
get it during
There
the
we
actual
go.
run.
I was never going to let you live that down if you mess it up there.
Yeah.
But here we go. The real time, the actual end of the run is going
For
to be
real
happening
time, no
here.
memes. This is it.
Right
here.
when we interact with Dylan here. And time.
Nicely done, dude.
Nice. Good run.
That was a really good run.
Yeah, I can't see what my time is, but
It was
we definitely have
104.20. Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. So that is the end of the run. We pushed the hiss out of Dylan, and he things happen. Again, don't want to spoil it, but really quickly before we do it, most important part.
Shawshank Redemption. That's the
Excellent.
movie
Excellent,
I
Shawshank percent. Good job. The real
Thank you.
category.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. That was a fantastic run. It was so fun to do. I do control a lot, so if you want to check out more runs, I do a bunch of categories as well, including all bosses, which Brio and I will test for is amazing. You can find me at twitch.tv/DemonicRobots, so make sure to check me out there. I do a lot of awesome control speed runs. And Brio and Lemura, feel free to plug your guys' wonderful selves as well.
Yeah, you can always find me Brian Otto, just like it's spelled on the screen there. I just want to give like a quick shout out to our little control speedrunning community. Despite it being really small, it's really cool to see someone else pushing this game, especially at a marathon setting. And shout outs to everybody that's ever helped us find glitches in this game, especially I shouted them out a lot, but S10PX and Flatty Wasstock, Soyboy Joy, all those people that have helped put the game where it is very cool.
Yeah, for sure. You can also find me at Lemura pretty much everywhere as well. So
yeah, make sure to check him out. He does some great Dragon Age runs, and Brio with his Titanfall 2, so sick of a speed run. Thank you so much, ESA, for having us. I appreciate you guys letting me show off this wonderful run, and I hope the rest of the event goes well. Everyone, donate if you can. If not, watching is more than enough. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much for the run. It was really awesome. I really enjoyed the debate. The chat reactions were awesome. So, chat, please keep being awesome. Keep being here. We're back after just a quick intermission.